Right. Hello and welcome to the virtual gathering of Ohlone Peoples, and of course, with the goal of having our in-person annual gatherings in the future. I'm Maeron, a naturalist with East Bay Regional Park District. Our event today is being live streamed on the East Bay Regional Park District's YouTube page, Facebook page, and the Coyote Hills Facebook page. Recordings of this event can be found on our YouTube page afterwards. Thank you all for joining us, and we're really excited to share these presentations with you. I want to acknowledge that I am within the ancestral territory of the Tui Boone Ohlone people. The lands currently within the East Bay Regional Park District fall within the territories of a diverse and resilient group of Indigenous people who are descended from Ohlone, Bay Miwok, Delta Yokut ancestral tribes. So please join me in honoring with gratitude the land itself and the people who have stewarded it since time immemorial and continue to remain deeply connected to it today. In our virtual presentation, we are honored and grateful to have Ohlone peoples from several tribes share about their culture, history, traditions, and discuss current involvements. We will have two pre-recorded videos to share today and two presenters with us live for you today. You are able to submit questions, so feel free to do that, and we'll be answering questions time permitting also. All right, well, without further ado, we will start with our first presentation, which is a pre-recorded video. This is a welcome and land acknowledgement by members of the Muwekma Ohlone tribe of the San Francisco Bay Area. And here it is.
Ako'y nono, welcoming words. Welcoming declaration to Muwekma's ancestral land. Horshetuhi Kanakraka Monica Viariano, Wechashkuchush, Muwekma Wulwulam, San Francisco Bay Area Tak. Good day. I greet you in our native Chochenyo language. I am Monica Viariano. I am the vice chairwoman for the Muwekma Ohlone tribe of the San Francisco Bay Area. Kanaming Kanak Apakush Joel. Chocho Kanak Papakush Albert, Chocho Kanak Melekush Mercedes, Kanak Suyakma Marin. I am the daughter of Joel Ariano, granddaughter of Albert Marin Ariano, and great granddaughter of Mercedes Marin. I am from the Marin lineage. My native ancestors were baptized at Mission San Jose going back to the year 1814, when my great 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 grandmother, Efrena Kinactole, was missionized into Mission San Jose from her village on the north side of the Carquines Strait. Her husband, Liberato Culpexi, from the Saclan and Halquin tribes, was baptized at Mission San Francisco in 1801. With me today are Muwekma Ohlone tribal members, former tribal councilwoman Gloria E. Gomez, her daughters Isabella Amne Gomez and Georgiana Gomez, and my son Lucas Tuheste Ariano. We are Muwekma Ohlone. Welcome to Muwekma's ancestral homeland, where we are born. Menemu nepetuhi exuyakma Muwekma. Maki mak Muwekma wulwulam akoy makware mani makiswi. On behalf of our people, Muwekma La Gente, we would like to offer an official welcoming to our ancestral homeland within the ethno-historic tribal territory of the Tuibun Alson Chochenyo Ohlone speaking tribal groups. We welcome everyone in attendance at the Ohlone Gathering 2022 in the city of Fremont, California, to our Holsheware, our beautiful ancestral homeland. Thank you. And now we would like to read the following Muwekma Wulwulam Wareptashu, Muwekma Ohlone Tribal Land Acknowledgement. Muwekma Wulwulam Wareptashu, Muwekma Ohlone Tribal Land Acknowledgement. Hoshituhi Maksuyakma Aye Makachokma. We greet you in our native Chochenyo language. Good day, our family and friends. We would like to recognize that while we gather at Mayan Shatoshikma, Coyote Hills Regional Park in Fremont, California, we are gathered on the ethno-historic tribal territory of the Tuibon Alson Chochenyo Ohlone speaking tribal group, who were the direct ancestors of some of the lineages enrolled in the Muwekma Ohlone tribe of the San Francisco Bay Area. The present-day Muwekma Ohlone tribe, with an enrolled Bureau of Indian Affairs documented membership of over 600 members, is comprised of all the known surviving American Indian lineages aboriginal to the San Francisco Bay region, who trace their ancestry through the missions Dolores, Santa Clara, and San Jose during the advent of the Hispano-European Empire into Alta California. The Muwekma Ohlone tribe of the San Francisco Bay Area are the successors and living members of the historic, sovereign, federally recognized Verona Band of Alameda County.
The land on which Coyote Hills Regional Park sits was and continues to be of great significance for our Muwekma Ohlone people. The park extends to surrounding areas that hold a tupintok, a traditional roundhouse, a place of celebration and ceremony, as well as nearby ancestral heritage Chown mounds, which served as our traditional cemetery sites and burial monuments.
The city of Fremont, where Coyote Hills is located, is viewed as a special place, and we respectfully acknowledge that it has been settled for millennia. It is established within our ancestral Tubun, Alson, Ohlone tribal ethno-historic territory, which includes the ancestral and legally unceded lands of the ancestors of the Muwekma Ohlone tribe of the San Francisco Bay Area. Many of the enrolled Muwekma lineages are directly descended from ancestors of the Tubun, Alson, Chochenyo Ohlone-speaking tribal group. As we gather at Maeron Toshikma, Coyote Hills Regional Park, it is vitally important that we not only recognize the history of the land in which we stand, but also we acknowledge that we, the first people of this place, the Muwekma Ohlone people, are alive and flourishing members of the Fremont and greater San Francisco Bay Area communities today.
Because of the tenacity and strength of our ancestors and elders, our people have been able to keep our culture and language alive. We have never left our indigenous land. Today, we repair the sustained damages of colonialism, and we are focused on keeping our traditional culture strong while we work for a bright and favorable future for our children as we follow in the footsteps of our ancestors.
It is important to acknowledge the significance of this Warep, land to the indigenous Muwekma Ohlone people of this region and other familial descendants of the Verona Band. We ask anyone who visits Mayan Shatoshikma, Coyote Hills, to be respectful of our Aboriginal lands and natural habitats, and consistent with our principles of community, diversity, and inclusion. Strive to be good citizens on behalf of the Muwekma Ohlone tribe on whose Aboriginal lands you are our guests. Maki Shorshe Ekinan, Utashpu Maka Makiwe. Thank you, and on behalf of the Muwekma Ohlone tribe, we hope you celebrate, honor, and stay in solidarity with all Muwekmas, indigenous tribal communities, with their struggles to reverse the adverse colonial legacies affecting all people of color in Fremont, the Greater Bay Area, California, the United States, and the Americas, as we gather and reflect on the sacred lands of the ancestral and historic Muwekma Ohlone tribal territory. Aho.
Muwekma Wulwulam Warep Dashu, Muwekma Ohlone Tribal Land Acknowledgement in Chochenyo. Horshe Tuhi, Coyote Hills Tak, Mayan Shatoshikma, Dashu Nuperote Uyakish Warep, Aye Manehiswe Warep, Tuibun, Alson, Chochenyo Wulwulam, Nonuente Muwekma. Aye Muwekma Uyakish Verona Band Alameda County Tak, Nesha Hinshustekne, Tuhi, Muwekma Ohlone Tribe, San Francisco Bay Area Tak. Nepewarek Oyo Wedel, Muwekma Wulwulam at Verona Band Tak Suyakma.
Makintashu, nu petita Muwekmash, Wetel Fremontak, Hemenya, Wayente at Oyo Otto Horshe Nepe Warep Huigi, 1956. Suyhanimu, Mak Numa, Hemenya Makin Wayente Ukshere. Hiti Aye Tashu Irite Coyote Hillstak, Mayan Shatoshikma, Achokmamu, Muwekma. Fremanta Kemenya Tahet, Tashu Makware Wulwulam, Manimak Heme, Manimak Ukshere, Manimak Dape, Tashu Muwekma Mak Isha, Mak Tuheste, Nesha tu Hirote Nomo Fremantak, Hemenya, Aye be'eriatak. Aho.
All right. Well, thank you to the Muwekma Ohlone tribe of the San Francisco Bay Area. Next, we have another pre-recorded video from Ruth Orta, filmed in the Coyote Hills Regional Park Garden. Ruth Orta is Himren, Halquin, Saklan, Ohlone Bay-Miwok elder who has lived in the Newark, Fremont area her whole life and has been working with East Bay Regional Park District and Coyote Hills for over 26 years. Here is Ruth Orta.
My name is Ruth Orta, and I am a Bay Area native. I was born in this town. Well, this used to be Newark, but it's called Fremont now. I was born in Newark on Sycamore Street on August the 20th, 1934, in a house. I was born at 1 p.m. in the afternoon, and my birth certificate said I was alive. It cracks me up. You're going to get laughs in this. so anyway, I am now 88 years old. I still live in the same town that I was born in. I have never left Alameda County. And that's where my mom, who was a native, and people know us as Ohlones. We didn't even know that there was such a word as Ohlone until they built the college here in the area. And they decided to tag that onto us because like I tell everybody, there is no one here to tell me who actually was the tribe that we belong to. We know we come from the ancestors from here because our burial sites go back to this place. And with all the digging and disturbing of the human remains, we know that we are from here. And they know that we are the natives from day one, from when Creator created this part of the world. And so that's what we go by because the government has never acknowledged our people. And my mom was born in Pleasanton. Her name was Trina Marine. And when she passed away, her last name was Rano. So in her last year, she was Trina Marine Rano. And that's how she registered us with the state of California. And she fought for that right from the 1940s to the 1960s is when they finally recorded us in this part of the century. And so anyway, she lived to be 84. She died in 1986, and she lived in Newark, and she was there for many, many years. And I was one of 8 children. I had, there was 4 girls and 4 boys, and we were all from Alameda County, except for my oldest brother was born in Contra Costa County in 1932, and he was my mom's first. And at the time that my mother had my brother, she was one of the natives that was educated in one of the orphanages. And she went to school in the orphanage in Mission San Jose run by the Dominican Sisters. So that's where she lived when she was a little tiny girl. She was orphaned. In 1910, she was totally orphaned. Her dad died in 1910. We know his death time because he's registered with the records department in Oakland. But my grandmother, who was the native, and she was full native on both sides, her father and her mother. And she was born in 1863, and her name was Avelina Cornate. And she died when Mom was between the ages of 4 and 5 years old. And like I say, there's no record on my grandmother who passed away, but there is on my grandfather. My mom's dad was this is how my mother described him. He was a redheaded Spaniard from Costa Rica. And I know he came from there because I found his death certificate in the records department in the city of Oakland. And he was from Costa Rica, and they have his name as Rafael Montoya Marin. Marin was his mom's last name because it has on his death certificate, his mother's name was Ramona Marin. His father's name was Rafael Montoya. So all the years that my mom lived on this earth, she never knew her real last name. She went by Marin, which was her grandmother's name, who she never knew. My mom was orphaned when she was little, so she didn't have any grandparents, that lived a long time. And and I never had grandparents, and either my dad's side or my mom's. But anyway, Mom was born in 1902 in Pleasanton. My grandmother was born in Pleasanton in 1863. And that's where the generation starts that we know of, was my grandmother and my mom. And we have to dig and dig for records on the rest of the family, and that we have done. So, but that's who I am. And then I want to say that I have 7 children. One of my children, she passed in 2015. I have 6 living. I have 17 grandchildren. I have 38 great-grandchildren. And I have 14 great-greats. I have 5 generations. So hopefully I'll live to connect the native way of having 7 generations. And so I got 2 more to go, so maybe I might make it. My son says I'm going to live to be 150, but I told him only if he stayed here with me, and he said, "You got it, Mom, it's a promise." So, so that's who I am, and I'm very proud of who I am. And I became part of the East Bay Regional Park Districts in the 1990s when I met Bev Ortiz. And I have, besides my mom was my teacher my whole entire life. The second teacher that I had that was awesome was Bev Ortiz. And she was a walking encyclopedia on Native California people. And so that's when I started to learn the language, our culture, and the ways of the Native people that came from Creator, and how long they lived before, like Bev always told us, it took less than 200 years for the modern day people to pollute Mother Earth, and the natives lived on it for thousands of years, and there was no pollution here. And so that goes to prove how long, we were here. And I like I say, natives all over the world, from every part of the world, were common sense brilliant, because none of us would be here if it wasn't for our ancestors, because they're the ones that learned how to do everything and took care of Mother Earth for all the years that it did. So I'm very proud of who I am, and I'm very lucky to learn from other natives in California that still have their culture that the conquering people didn't get to, and they still have their culture and their language. And my mom never got to hear her language or know about the rest of the natives that were around her that went so far back. But she knew we were here from this part of the world because she was told by her relatives and her parents. They were still living until she was 8 years old, is when her dad died, so in 1910. So that's who I am, and I'm one of 8 children, and so I have a big family, and and I know the whole Bay Area because I've never left, and I'm very interested in history. And I always used to ask my mom, how come they call us Indians, Mom, when we're from here? She said, that's what the government wants people to think, that we came from some other part of the world, which we didn't, so that way they could say the land was free for them to take. That's the reason why they don't give us anything and they don't do anything for us. And that's coming from a lady that raised me with all the, and my mom was a brilliant woman. She's a brilliant, brilliant woman, little tiny lady, but she was a good parent and a good teacher. So she's the one that taught me. And like I tell people, I'm the reincarnation of my mother because I believe the same way. And I wish everybody in the world would believe the way the natives of all the world took care of this place for us to come here and destroy it. It's terrible. But I enjoy doing this, and I'm retired from, I worked 54 years of my adult life. When we were little in this area, my mom took the kids, all of us, we'd go and work in the fields, the apricot ranches, and for all that. So we were hardworking, poor people, but God-fearing and loving to Mother Earth. So, and our sisters and brothers from all parts of the world. We were taught to love everyone. And that's the way I am, and that's the way I raise my kids. So I got all kinds of mixtures in my children.
How long have you been coming to Coyote Hills?
I did the Ohlone intern program for 26 years. And I worked also. I was a train operator for VTA in San Jose, Santa Clara County Valley Transportation Authority. I drove the buses, and I worked for them for 21 years. I retired from VTA, and I'm lucky because my two grandkids wouldn't be able to live with me if I didn't have the retirement that I have. So I'm lucky that I'm able to take care of the two grandkids that my daughter left when she passed away. So I worked for VTA, but I worked all 54 years of my life because I got married at 16 and had my first child when I was almost 17. 3 months before I was 17, my oldest daughter was born. And Ramona is my daughter, and she does the soap root brush. And my oldest granddaughter of the 17 grandkids, Sabrina, she does the cordage. And Rita, my oldest daughter's other daughter, she's the second of the grandkids, and she has the oldest great grandchild, and her daughter is the fourth generation, and her daughter is the mommy of the one of the greats, the fifth generation. So the family is huge. Like I tell everybody, we're here. I'm not leaving. I don't own a home. I still rent. I wish I could have one of the homes for the people that make a lot of money, but I don't qualify for that. And now that I'm retired, I could take care of myself. But I would like not to have to pay rent. I would like to have a home, but I don't. So you could say that I'm homeless, but I'm not outside because I rent. I still pay. So that's where I'm at now, taking care of my two grandkids. They say that they take care of grandma. Nope. I'm the one's taking care of them. They wouldn't be able to live like they do if it wasn't for me. So anyway, I'm still an active person and still involved. And I tell everybody that I talk to during COVID, in the lines for the toilet paper and the paper towels, I talked to everybody and let them know who I was. They were shocked. They didn't know that we were still here. Most people that go to work and live around, they're shocked when I tell them who I am. They might think I'm a little on the nutty side because I don't care if they believe me or not. I know who I am. So, but they really wake up, So we're still here. We never left. Yeah. Oh, you must have a nice home. No, I don't, but it's nice for me. I live in it. but I don't have property.
And those conversations that you have with those friends that you meet in so many places, do you tell them about the Ohlone gathering?
Yes, I do, because I did that for 26 years. And I said, and that's when I learned about the culture and the people and all the ones that participated. There was a big group that worked out of here that participated in the program that Bev Ortiz started, the Ohlone Intern Program. And I actually cooked the acorn in a basket.
And if you had to pick a favorite memory, which I'm sure is very difficult, of the Ohlone gathering, what would it be for you?
I say cooking the acorn in the basket on the coals, the rocks, the fire we had. Yeah, we actually ate it. That was the best part. Yep.
And what do you think is important for visitors to Coyote Hills to know about Native people?
That we were very fortunate to be here when we were, because they kept the place the way it looks, still with people on it, with animals. When I was growing up, this place here was covered with jackrabbits, the wild rabbits, and what do you call it? The little guys that run around, the fox, deer, birds of all kinds, the butterflies. It was great. We had pheasants and all kinds of things, and it was and lots of rain. We had our seasons, and all the creeks, Niles Canyon, Lake Merritt, all those lakes, all the ones that collected the water from all the rivers that flowed through the mountains and came down, it all had water. You could see the fish in the water and everything. We used to fish at Niles Canyon and the one in Castro Valley and Elm Rock in San Jose, Santa Clara County, all those that we fished and swam in all of them. I didn't swim, but we went to the water. I was afraid of the water. It was bigger than me.
Not so much anymore?
For going into I still take the kids wherever we go, but I do not. Even at swimming pools. I says, I'll wet my toes, that's it. Because that's a big piece of space. And if you don't know how to swim, you have no business out there. And I don't have any business going out there unless I'm in a boat.
Is there anything else you'd like to add and to share with friends?
Well, what I like to share with friends and add is we need to get the history and the culture of our people in the history and the education system in the schools. That's my main concern. That was my mother's main concern. And that's what I want to get across to everybody, is please put us in the history books where we live. And if I could say something about this part of the world, this part here, they called it Washington Township, which was Fremont, Newark, and Union City. We were little towns. And who named us Washington Township? I don't know that part of the history, and I really don't care. So, but when they came and they named it Fremont, I'm thinking, why did they change and why did they do that? Why didn't they leave it the way it was? It was bad enough that they didn't keep the native names of all this part of the world. Then I discovered Fremont is the name of the general that came and helped when they had the missions all going. And that's another thing. As far as the missions, that was really the worst for our people. And as a Christian person, I was raised as a Catholic because that's my mom did, but my mom had the native way of thinking, and that's the way I think. Religion, organized religion, is run by men, and men are greedy, they're controlling. Look what they did to our country. Look what they did to our people. But we didn't see that growing up because Mom always taught us about being good to everybody, and because she didn't know her culture. She wasn't around her people when she was a little girl growing up. So anyway, the way she raised us, we treat everybody the same, everybody. And so anyway, she would tell us, or the people that have churches, that's run by man. And it's not, and she did believe in Jesus Christ and the Blessed Mother. Those were her two idols that she had, that she raised her family by, those learnings. But not all the confession to another person. She says, why would I confess what I did bad to that guy? I don't know what he did before he came and listened to me. He's a man, just like. And that's the way she interpreted. So she says, as far as learning about the Creator, God, this is the way I believe. And she says, and if you believe in God, and Jesus Christ came down in the image of God to teach us so we could go to where we're going to go, then that's the religion. But she says, as far as the organized religion, that stuff, those people, the way they're living, that's not what Jesus Christ came here to teach from Creator, that we should live, good. So that's what she thinks about religion. She said, so if you believe in a Creator and you take care of Mother Earth, you're going to be fine. But once you start destroying it, you're lost. And if you think that way, that you have to own the land. And that's another thing about the history. The native people, the people that conquered, came and took the earth because our people didn't own earth. They took care of Mother Earth. They took care of her, they took care of the animals, everything. They did not own that. They were put here to live and take care of each other and all the animals in the world. So their belief was different. So I believe my native mom, the way she taught me. And people say, well, you have to forgive us. Well, no, Creator's going to forgive us. When I go answer and stand up for my husband used to tell me that. He says, oh, you did that. I said, no, when you die, you can answer for your own sins. No, I'm not going to be there to help you out. So we're all going to face our Creator. I do believe that because he put us here. Somebody there has to be a Creator. And you have to believe in that. And you have to believe to take care of the world. And when we die, we're going to be judged how we lived, how you took care of your family. I'm not going to kick my kids out because they turned 18 years old. That's crazy. That's not the way I was raised. We were raised with a loving, caring parent. And my stepdad, thank God, was a good, good father. My dad died in 1939 when I was 5 years old in Newark. He worked on the Dumbarton Bridge. He was in the little one with the little house on the top. He died in 1939, and when he got sick, that he was working up in that little house. And my stepdad met my dad because he was one of the Mexicans that came from Guadalajara, Jalisco, from Mexico when he was 17 years old, and he ended up in Newark because he worked on the Southern Pacific tracks from Arizona all the way through Nevada and into California via the Livermore Valley. And so he knew a lot of my mom's relatives before he ever met my mother. Yeah.
What's one word to describe what we're feeling after sharing a story? And I'd like to ask you
Family. You're part of my family now because you know me.
Thank you to Ruth for continuing to share about your family, history, your traditions, and your culture. We are deeply grateful to Ruth. And for all of our viewers today, we do have the comments open. So if you have any questions that come up, feel free to ask, and we'll hopefully get to as many as we can during our live stream today. And I'm really excited and really honored to introduce our next presenter who is here with me live. We have Paula Calles joining us today. Paula is an Ohlone artist, writer, and speaker. Paula does burn ceremony art to share her spiritual journey and heal the impacts of colonization in her life. Paula is writing a book and curriculum based on her experiences geared towards disadvantaged youth and how to break wounded generational cycles and build resiliency. Paula speaks in schools and at events to raise awareness about Ohlone people's thriving existence. So I'll introduce Paula, and we're really excited to have you with us here today. How are you doing?
Good. Hi, everyone, and thank you for being here.
Now, we were just watching a video from Ruth Orta, and I understand that you're related to Ruth.
Yes, yeah, I'm actually super smiley just seeing her video. She's so cute, and she's my great aunt, and we're super close. And she's been going and thriving for so many years, advocating for Ohlone people. So excited to see that video shared. Thank you all for that.
Absolutely. And Ruth was talking a little bit about her experience at Coyote Hills and coming to the Ohlone gatherings and having her whole family there too. Can you talk a little bit about your experience at the Ohlone gatherings?
Yeah, it's been years for me since I've attended one, but it's definitely as a memory in my youth, kind of always going to Coyote Hills, always being a part of different events and seeing our family kind of reconstruct some of the teachings and things that we used to have culturally. So yeah, it's been imperative.
Great. And today you're going to be sharing your burn ceremony artwork and some of the writings that you have. Can you tell us a little bit about that and how that started for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think just kind of coming up through generational trauma and the way that colonialism has affected my family, there's always been some questions and some need to try to heal those parts of myself. And as I kind of navigated that journey, I really started to feel like I needed to reflect more and be able to express my pain so that I can heal from it. And part of that was through reflection, meditation, burning ceremonies, and then also creating art from those ashes. So, yeah.
And we do have some examples of your artwork, so I'll turn it over to you and to speak more about that, and we'll share that too. Thank you for being with us today.
Of course, thanks for having me. So this is the first piece that I started, and it was basically where I just had a single ceremony by myself. And then I had written down all of the things that I had heard growing up, or different pains that I went through, and things that my family was affected by when it comes to kind of the struggles of being an Ohlone person in this land and not having the resources that we needed. So I created all of these writings, and then I decided I want to let them go by burning them. And I do this ceremony for myself, but I also do it for art. And when I do it for art, I like to preserve some of the writings so that you can see that story is shared through those writings on the canvas. And so with those writings, I burn them and then I paint with them. I put them on the canvas and I kind of just add I add some paint sometimes, but this one is just the burn. And across, you can kind of see some smears of that ash. Let's see the next slide. This is just like a close-up of that. You can kind of see some of the words in a little more detail, some of the different things that people have said, which can be triggering and traumatic, even as an outsider kind of reading some of those things. But yeah, just some of the detail there. On the next slide. Kind of going back into it, different words that have been said. You can see the ashes in the paper, how they kind of have all fallen onto the canvas. So it's kind of interesting to see some of the sweeps of the art. It's kind of close up as well. The next slide. There we go. And then the smears kind of going across. So with all this kind of put on there, towards the end, I kind of just let my I guess, my healing process take over and allow me to kind of go with what I'm feeling. But in the very end, I kind of smeared the ashes across. And for me, that was moving forward. And I think the next slide captures that as well. And the next slide. So this is my second piece that I'd done, which I kind of got a little creative when it came to my mentality on this. It was on a vintage newspaper. So I think for me, this was really all labels, things that we've been told, things that we've been pushed to kind of acclimate to when it comes to capitalism, and then also, you know, just a different, I want to say, kind of a colonialist mentality, things that we should, you know, acclimate to and change our personalities to really suit what Americans were supposed to be like. And so there's a vintage newspaper with all these different labels and things that were to persuade people to look a certain way or to be a certain way, a certain size, a certain color hair, a certain look. And then you have like the dark clouds, kind of the surrounding pressure that puts on people. And then you have the person there and some words, again, kind of going into what these pressures, what our society tells us we need to be, and how that affects us, really. Next slide. There we go. And then kind of a close-up, you can see some of the texture of the newspaper, and some of the burns and some of the words, and just kind of getting really in on those newspaper clippings and some of those arts, those pieces. Next slide. And then within this, it may be hard to see because those clouds are dark, but there are swirls. So a lot of the brush strokes I did in the clouds, though they were dark, kind of implicating like pain or hurt, there are swirls. And for me, a swirl or a spiral is really a shape or a pattern of life. A lot of the times we feel like we're in a whirlwind of emotions, but with the spiral, it's a reminder that although we sometimes spiral down and have pain and go through difficult times, the reminder is really just that we'll always spiral back up, just like a coil. We spiral down, but we also come back around and to ourself. So kind of finding our center. And so although this has a lot of pain in it, as well as just the push for us to acclimate to a society that wasn't ours, there's also those reminders kind of that things are going to be okay. So the next slide. This is really the body of the person. To me, this is what I'm looking at. And with the person, you know, which is kind of round and just this basic, almost ghost-like figure, within it there are, you know, these different kind of whites and pale skin tones, which I think was what people tried to push on us, that was more acceptable. If you were darker skinned or indigenous or Ohlone, and not white, that it was better for us to try to fit in. And so you'll see those different skin tones, but within the kind of belly area, if you look really closely, those things start to get dark. And again, with the swirl, and kind of in the womb area as well, thinking about generations to come, my children, their children, and that within us, they can never really take out our roots. Next slide. Just some more texture, kind of like side view there with the clouds, and I can kind of see the swirls a little bit better in this view, so I'm not sure if you all can see that, but hopefully that comes through and maybe you'll be able to see it in person someday at a museum. Next slide. And so this is a feminine piece, really just to kind of further capture what really mothers, women that have been impacted by these generational traumas have experienced. And this one also has a lot of texture in the next slide. You can kind of see like the side angle. There's a lot of darkness in this one. Again, the point is for me to really release and heal my traumas, but also share that experience with other people who go through this as well. Next slide. Just more of that kind of view. Just a lot of really, within this, there are more words up close, but they are more towards kind of really organized religion, how that was pushed on us, shame, neglect, and taught not to embrace ourselves for who we were naturally and organically. Next. Just again, a little kind of close up, some of that. This one, it happens to be really more textured in person, but yeah, definitely a fun piece to put together, being a woman and identifying as a mom and matriarch, and important, yeah, for a lot of the family members to see. Next. And just a poem I wrote. So I think when I wrote this poem, I thought a lot about my great grandmother, Trina Marine, and her mother. So her mother passing when she was young and not being around. And I thought, how do we heal, as children of moms who pass? And how will my children heal when I pass? And so I wrote this poem, and I'll read through it, but definitely just kind of a piece of what I do. I do also write. I have a couple of books I've started kind of midway, but I'm working on, as Maeron mentioned earlier, just kind of writing a book really about my experiences and sharing that with disadvantaged youth to help them build resiliency and break cycles caused by generational trauma, because a lot of the time, being young or at any age really, there are points where I think we question how or why these things happen, and I think that it's really helpful to know and to guide folks in that they're not alone, and that there are resources and kind of where do these things come from, and help them find their own path to healing as well. So whatever that may be. So I'll go ahead and read this. And to my children after I'm gone. So this day may be very hard for you, my child, now that I have passed. And although you may be upset and wondering why, I want you to know I have made art. I have drawn upon this earth and rooted my DNA deeply entwined in every morsel that you are. The breaths you take and the ground you stand upon, those are mine too. You, my child, while I was on earth, I made art. Like painting on a canvas, the ocean had touched my toes. Like a soft brush, the water washed upon my skin. For many years, I worked hard to show you all how much I love you, how much I love art. For years and years, I bore the pains that this not so easy world had brung upon me. I cried and beat the ground with my fists, praying aloud to God, praying to Mother Earth, the universe, praying to whoever would hear my howls. My bones had been tired for quite some time. Although you may have not seen it, that too is art. The unforgettable moments. I cried out of joy for you. That tiny hand, those tiny feet, that great big accomplishment. The feeling of seeing you complete, that is all art. I walked alone. Alone I walked, and alone I touched those very same flowers you see all around you. I smelled them, and I noticed the art of it all. When the days were cold and windy, I stood outside when no one was looking, and I spread my wings, and I imagined someday I would fly. And when the rain came in, and I would cook the soup, sip the tea, when the money wasn't there, and still for you, I needed to care. I made art. The traditions that my ancestors before me taught. You have to make it happen. Do not stop. It's an art. The days I was sick, but still I cared for you, not that you needed me, but because I wanted to. That was also art. Everywhere you go, my child, I will be there, and that is art. When you look around the world and feel the different climates, I hope you will spread your wings too and fly alongside me. I want you to visit the beach and let the water be the very same paintbrushes that once tickled my toes as well. I want you to make the homemade soup, and I want you to sip the tea and remember the stories of me. I want you to play the music and sing the lyrics and let your emotions free. That is the art, you see. So that's just a little poem I did. And yeah, and so I think we're open for questions. If there aren't any, we can always answer those later as well.
Thank you for sharing that, Paula. That was beautiful.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, and yeah, if there are questions or comments, feel free to add them, and we can take those, and any comments we'll give to the presenters also. And if people want to learn more about your artwork or see more writings or support you, what are some ways that people can do that?
Yeah, they can. I haven't really set up too much or have a strong presence online, but I do have an Ohlone Heart profile on Instagram, and then I have an aloneheart.com website, which still kind of needs some work. So getting there, but having to have a regular 9-to-5 job too. But I'm here, and my contact information is there, so anyone's welcome to reach out and chat that way as well.
Perfect. All right. Definitely stay tuned. And I understand that your son, Carlos Calles, also does some artwork and some music too.
Yes, yeah, he's an amazing artist. He does many different things, but music is definitely his number one.
All right. And I think we have a video from Carlos, so we'll go ahead and play that. This is from Carlos Calles.
I never get to see images of a native person living their everyday life, let alone a life that's dynamic and nuanced and filled with character. To me, being an indigenous artist is sacred. I get to take what goes unseen and show it to the rest of the world. When we tell our stories and show the world who we really are, we live forever. I'm Muwekma Ohlone, and I come from one of only 5 remaining family lineages.
That was great. Thank you for sharing that. And I think, Paula, that you have some words from Carlos too that kind of go with that video, if you want to share that too.
Yeah, absolutely. So he just mentioned that visibility is so important for Indigenous peoples. It's so rare that he gets to see images capturing our everyday lives being shared, let alone photos that tell our stories in an authentic or dynamic way. These photos for him is in his most personal moments, in his apartment and around his neighborhood. No matter how it may look for each one of us, we are here and we are thriving. We deserve our stories to be told. And so, yes, he's doing a lot of work to kind of bring awareness, and his music is doing great things. So it's really great. And he can be found at Cilo Sound on IG, and then he's on YouTube, Apple Music, Spotify, SoundCloud, kind of all those platforms as Cilo Sound.
Perfect. All right. So everyone make note out there of different ways that you can continue to to be connected to these different forms of art too. All right. Well, we'll keep monitoring if any questions come up or if any comments. But thank you so much to Paula and to Carlos for sharing. Thank you. All right. Next, we have another presenter with us live today. We have Kanyon Coyote Woman. Kanyon is an activist, artist, and educator, CEO of Kanyon Consulting, founder of Indian Canyon Two Spirit Society, cultural director and CEO of Costanoan Indian Research, cultural representative and native monitor for Indian Canyon Mutsun Band of Costanoan Ohlone People, and the recipient of the 2001 EAP Award of Recognition for Arts and Culture Leadership. All right, so I'm happy and really excited to introduce Kanyon. Thank you for being with us today. How are you?
Alive-ish. I'm shifting my environments today because I want to make sure I have clear internet. So apologies on, well, I was planning on having a different background. And so if there's a family sounds in the background, deep apologies.
No worries. And thank you for adjusting and being with us here this morning. And we're going to do an activity later. We'll come back to this called the zine. And we're just going to share that link in the comments. So if you want to download that, if you want to print it out, that's an activity that Kanyon will be doing with all of us a little bit later. Yeah, she has it up right now. And do you just want to do a little brief introduction on the zine, and then we'll come back to it a little bit and how that got started for you?
Of course. On my website, Kanyon Consulting, I have designed a Minizine. Now, Minizine technology is just the act of folding, and it was done long ago. And the moment I encountered folding mini zines, I was like, I could put information that I'm always telling community. And so it is a small mini zine. There are two designs catered to the 4th and 8th grade reading level, and they offer insight to Indigenous protocol, language revitalization, just a tiny bit of Indigenous insights about Ohlone territory and what the word Costanoan means. So it's just a quick way that we can share information and learn. And when you're learning something new, you're creating new neurosynaptic connections. And so when your body's learning something new, your mind is aligned, is ready to learn something new as well. So that's what's exciting at this window of time. And so a quick little introduction, and we'll be folding. The challenge is it is a 11 by 17 golden ratio. I have yet to design one for an 8 by 11. I will. You can print it on 8 by 11, but you will have to trim it to make sure it meets that golden ratio standard. So I definitely want to apologize for not designing an 8 by 11 because the text is so small. So apologies there.
No worries. We will make it work. So we'll drop that link for anyone that wants to download it, print it out, and then we'll be doing that with Kanyon towards the end, and then talking about all of this, incredible information that you have on here too. Now, I know that you wanted to start with a prayer, so we can start with that, and I'll turn it over to you.
Mishmin Tuhis, Kanrakat Kanyon, Coyote Woman, Sarah's Roots. I come from Indian Canyon Nation, and I am shifting into leadership as a tribal chairwoman of our small tribal community. My mother and my grandmother have always taught me that we come from a matrilineal society, and that when song, ceremony, and dancing stops, so does the earth. I too believe that, and I want to offer a prayer in our language that even some of our other community members who are taking steps towards decolonization can recognize. Now, when you think about it, when we honor all of our ancestors and our ancestors' ancestors, that we all have Indigenous lineages of the land of our ancestors. And when we acknowledge Indigenous protocol by becoming familiar with the Native peoples of whose land we are on, we are acknowledging truth in history and the history of the original stewards of these ancestral homelands. And so in acknowledging Indigenous protocol, I want to offer a prayer in our language, in the Mutsun language, the land the language of the land of my ancestors. Pide kanama si compation hetel canoso soto canoso. It translates, which no one is entitled to, however, I want to share, that it translates to earth my body, water my blood, air my breath, and fire my spirit. And the fun part is it's actually on this Minizine. So to spell it out, even though our language is an oral tradition, we did adapt and adopt the average keyboard language instead of the linguistic special symbols. And it's just one step to reconnecting to our ancestral roots and connection to the community of the land. Because when we honor truth and history, and when we lean to Indigenous pedagogies, we can strategize sustainable futures. So I thank you. And so I'm just so honored to be here. It's different being here online. And so I'm so used to like racing to Coyote Hills and racing to connect with community. And it's always so wonderful because I remember growing up being at Coyote Hills. And there were times where there was even ceremonies the days before, and the Native community, we were allowed to camp out, to be present, to make sure that we were there in the morning. And it felt really good to be in community with Indigenous relatives, and then to be able to be present the next day to offer insight to our culture, our language, our community, to East Bay Regional Park's Coyote Hills location on the first Sunday of October every year, and to hear perspectives of Indigenous community sharing about their work. I'm here today to share about language revitalization and my conversations around decolonization and just, well, to be honest, just being a 21st century native. Like, I recognize my privilege being raised on the land of my ancestors, where my ancestors' ancestors' ancestors have always come from, and where I recognize how lucky and blessed I am, where I live in Indian Kanyon, the only federally recognized trust Indian country that follows and respects Indigenous protocol, because everyone who visits, they don't just show up and they start building or paving roads or just doing average things of the mainstream society. The community visits the Indigenous peoples first and engages in a consensual, communicative, positive dynamic, seeking permission to be on the land, offering gifts to the Native community, and seeking an opportunity to be present to engage in ceremony or facilitate a ceremony, because Indian Kanyon, my mother, Anne Marie Sayers, has opened that land for all Indigenous people in need of land for ceremony. And that environment is so unique that I recognize how blessed and privileged I am to have that as an environment to be raised as a 21st century Native, dominantly able to be a full-time Native, which is very challenging in 2020, 2020. And so with that being said, I point this out because it's a challenge because, well, our schools, our education systems, our environments have not been very inclusive. And to have spaces like East Bay Regional Parks provide an opportunity for living Indigenous peoples to share their culture, and for docents to present information about Indigenous peoples, it's so very necessary because, well, as a Native person, I always got frustrated that Indigenous peoples are put in the past tense. Oh, the Ohlone people were here. They used to do that. They used to do that. Hello? Do I not exist? I want to point that out because from as simple as just putting Indigenous peoples in the past tense, it's actively erasing us. Though, as an Indigenous person who is optimistic and who wants to remain an educator, I use humor and I have fun with presenting this information to fourth graders and eighth graders and college students. And some days I'm like, I'm going to go to class and I'm going to talk to fourth graders about genocide. And I love visiting classes, and I love speaking and storytelling with empathy and a little bit of sarcasm that the adults get, because I have to let some of that negative energy out somewhere, right? Western settler colonialism is a very pervasive mindset that permeates through all the nations. And when we think about it, all of our communities have been deeply impacted by colonization. And it's a mindset. It's beyond colorism. It's beyond all the isms. Like there's classism there, there's capitalism there, there's there's resource extraction and environmentalism, environmental racism, all isms. And it's a mindset that we all can work on, taking steps to decolonize and re-indigenize our approach. And so to acknowledge that, I actually can probably preface a little bit of the Minizine is because as an Indigenous person, I find myself sharing the same information over and over and over to classes. And if I want to be a productive Indigenous community member focusing on Indigenous futurisms, I'm going to have to get out of that conversation if it's going to be the same over and over and over. So, how do I educate the communities that I encounter who don't know what they don't know? And how can we get everybody caught up, or at least at a bare minimum, informed? Like the word Ohlone, it's a misnomer. The word Costanoan, another misnomer. I identify as a proud Ohlone person because I was raised with this word and it has Indigenous roots. It's from a single village site called Ohlone. And if you look up East Bay Regional Parks District curriculum, there is a curriculum available for fourth graders. And I point this out because it's like more organizations and communities can be collaborative. We can strategize sustainable futures by bringing in Indigenous pedagogies, by honoring truth and history, by offering land acknowledgements and historical acknowledgements, by acknowledging how it is we came to be here and where it is we are. I love edible and medicinal foraging courses so long as they are accountable. If the course is not talking about a land acknowledgement, they're not talking about colonization, about the ecological environment, how it came to be the way it is. If they don't systemically offset how marginalized community members have access to educational environments like this, I'm not sure that those courses are doing as much as they could be doing. So I point that out in the work that I do. And I'm really passionate about how lucky I am to be in these environments and to do these things. So I really appreciate opportunities like this to share perspective, to be present in community. And yeah, we're digitally connecting, and this is definitely different. I've been doing this for the past couple of years, pandemic times. At the same time, for East Bay Regional Parks, a gathering of Ohlone Peoples, when usually it's hands-on, all the community, all present, the booths would be getting set up. We'd be hanging out and connecting with family members, connecting with Indigenous relatives, talking. It's different. And I'm happy that those who are present here, actually, any of you, I highly recommend if any of you are watching this live, in the comments, let us know where you are. Let's acknowledge Native land. Hashtag honor Native land. Comment where you are at. Do you know the Native land's name or the language of the territory or words that are similar? Because all right, if you're in Oakland, you're in Huchin in the Chichenyo linguistic territory. Last night I was in San Francisco. Oh wait, no, I don't call it San Francisco. I call it Yelamu. The first language of Yelamu is Ramaytush. Today I'm in my ancestral homelands. I'm in Mutsun Ohlone territory, aka Hollister. And my environment shifted. I wasn't supposed to be here today. So, hey, I'm glad to join you from my ancestral homelands. I know that being an Indigenous community member, culture sharing is really important for people to recognize that we are still here. And early on, my mother loved and appreciated that I have a singing voice. And so I want to offer a song. I want to offer a song that acknowledges language revitalization. Language revitalization is so very important. And as I am a communicator, as I am a being who's like a catalyst, a being who likes to connect community, I want to acknowledge the pollinators, hummingbird, the bringers of fire. When you think about the ruby red throat of the hummingbird, the little hummingbird carried fire. And in our language, in the Mutsun dialect, humunya is hummingbird. Now, further south of us in Monterey territory, aka Rumsin territory, their word for hummingbird is humaya. Quite similar, but different. There are 8 language dialect groups between San Francisco and Monterey Bay. So I want to point this out that our languages are similar and diverse. And so whenever we travel to these areas, just because a lot of our communities are lumped in together as Ohlone territory, our different languages have different protocols, practices, societal standards, and governing structures. And it's good to acknowledge that California has over 200 language dialects, and we are the most linguistically dense territory this side of the northern hemisphere, outside of Papua New Guinea, I think. And pre-contact, we have been deeply impacted by colonization. However, language is not dead, it is dormant. The vernacular and the words do matter. So, humunya, little hummingbird. I'm going to offer a little hummingbird song. Humunya, 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 weha, weha. Humunya, 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 weha, weha, hu. Humunya, 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 weha, weha. Humunya, 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 weha, weha, hu. Humunya, 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 weha, weha. Humunya, 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 weha, weha, hu. Humunya, 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 weha, weha. Humunya, 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 weha, weha, hu. Oh, oh, oh. In California Native circles, when we say, oh, it sends that prayer out in a good way. It helps welcome our dancers to the circle. It sends off those songs in a good way. If you're at a rally or you're at, like, I don't know, like the Shell Mound protest during Black Friday, if one of our relatives, like Karina Gould, would say, welcome to Huchin. Oh, we are still here. Oh, we still will be here. Oh, you can say, oh, and our elders, our community members can keep on sharing. And so we say, oh, and yeah, I wanted to offer a cheat code too, because I realized when I said hashtag honor native land, native-land.ca is a quick little cheat code. So whenever you're joining all these different Zooms, you can say like, hey, I'm calling in from this territory. And other people will be like, oh, that's an interesting way to do land acknowledgements. Some of us already have been doing it, and some are like, what is this and why? So land acknowledgements are important. It's just one step. One step. We can always be doing more, because land acknowledgements is just, okay, we're acknowledging. What else can we do, and what else, in what ways can we connect and be in community? And so it's always beautiful and important. But yeah, all around the Bay Area, we have beautiful, diverse communities, and some of our relatives have intermarried. Because I want to point something out: this concept of blood quantum, this concept of blue blood, how supposedly other colonial bloodlines like to proclaim that if they marry and have children with their relatives, that their blood stays supposedly pure. When you ever think about pureblood dogs, you ever think that, are they really healthy? I was always taught by my indigenous relatives that when you marry outside your clan, you are strengthening your bloodline. So I want to point that out when we hear about this construct of how Native are you? What percentage of Native are you? You don't look Native American. I recognize how privileged I am even presenting as an Indigenous person. The concept of almond eyes and high cheekbones, the caramel skin. I recognize how lucky I am, because there are some of my relatives who are more white presenting, but more Indigenous heritage and bloodline on both family sides. Genetics are interesting. But also, when people have the construct or concept about what they say is, you don't look Native, who is the authority? Or are we informed by Western settler colonial science? Or are we informed by Western settler media? Who controls the media? Who's controlled these academic environments? You do realize to this day, written history is categorized as the only history. Even archaeologists today when they refer to my ancestors that are buried beneath the soil around the archaeological and cultural resources of my peoples, they call it prehistoric. But when I ask people, what is your first thought when I say prehistoric? Because we were educated in an environment that talks about dinosaurs and paleontology, not even archaeology. So I wanted to point that out as a little heaviness in the 21st century that we're still catching up. So prehistoric for who? Pre-contact, yes. Pre-mission period, yes. Let's shift that vernacular. I really would appreciate it because we can talk about cultural competency, cultural sensitivity, cultural awareness. So with that being said, I want to offer insight to my Minizine. So I hope someone at East Bay Regional Parks printed some out so they can try and fold it with me. Oh, we got the presentation. So these are two Minizines that are on my website. And for those of you who need visuals, I talk while I fold it. And and actually just last night, I did the fastest lesson and someone kept up with me. So I was really, really proud. And so if anyone, usually I like to sit there and talk to someone and look at it. So here I am doing a presentation, and you can do this with a blank piece of paper. So if you do not have a Minizine printed out, you can grab, as long as it is 8x11, that golden ratio. I forgot what that name of that size is. But the goal is make it taller than it is wide. We fold it at the waist. We fold it in half. And this is where you let your inner OCD shine. You let your inner OCD shine and get those corners together, right? And then you tell the fold which way to go. You want to make sure it's all the way across and have fun with it. And this is where my neurodivergency thrives. I get to have a lot of fun with being picky about the fold. And you get to decide how you want to fold it. Now, it doesn't matter because, as I said, you can do this with a blank piece of paper. Again, make it taller than it is wide, and we fold it again. And we could do this with either one because we will be opening it. And again, you get those corners where the leaf edges are. Hold the corners and then you crease it. And sometimes the crease wants to go an old direction. Some of those old patterns will stick. We want to ensure that we fold and we say, you know what? This is the new pathway that we're making. We're making new pathways. And again, we want to make it taller than it is wide and fold again at the waist. When I used to fold this in classes, I used to say, let's fold it hamburger style and let's fold it hot dog style. The only logical one is the hot dog because it looks like an actual hot dog. Hamburger is a circle bun on a circle. How does that make sense? It makes sense to fourth graders. And so I'm trying to find ways to talk about anatomy. Fold it at our waist or fold it like a butterfly, symmetrical. Now, the goal is to have that 6x4. Or is this? Yeah, 6x4. Because if you are looking at a blank piece of paper, we have 8 tiles. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now, we fold it in half. And this is the fun part. We want to fold it in half again. Now, one side will give you a paper cut. It's just like sedges. Sedges have edges. We don't want to tear there. The other side, where it's the fold, we want to tear halfway in. Now, how do you tear paper in a straight line without it going off? We can crease it, or I cheat and I use my teeth. Pandemic time protocols, especially if you're in a room with people with masks. But right now, we're in the comfort of our homes and educational environments. So, and then I'm going to date myself. We will spin it around like a Rolodex, all the way around, because we want to crease the inside. If this were a knee, we want to hit the top of the knee, and then we want to bend it backwards to get underneath. You can crease it, or the same way that when we bend wire, bend, it gets hotter and becomes weaker, and you're able to break it. This is doing the exact same thing with the fibers of the paper. I'm doing it with my teeth and the tiniest bit of saliva. But you can also do it with a pen. If you drew a line right exactly on the crease over and over and over, you'll be able to cut a straight line without scissors. Now, one side is paper cut. Sedges have edges. This is the fold. We only want to tear halfway down. halfway, not all the way. Because when we open it, it will have a hole. And when it has that hole, we will fold it like a hot dog. We will fold it like a butterfly folding its wings because we want it as tall and fold it in half. Now, because we've had foldings, we want it to do that. We want, if I were to describe it, fold it like a hot dog and then push together. Sometimes those creases don't want to be your friend. We want them both to push out and they meet because we want it to sit down, and we crease. And we find the cover, either Ohlone Land or Ohlone Solidarity is the cover of the Minizines. Again, let your inner OCD shine. I find the first page, and then I turn the next page, and I get those corners together, and I crease. I turn the next page, and sometimes those pages don't like to behave. I get those corners together. I turn the pages. Some of us are visual learners, so on this page, on this screen, I also have a visual. If some of you are different type of auditory learners, you know, we have YouTube available. You can go on and say how to fold a Minizine, and then we just have fun. And just like look at this. Just like I mentioned, sometimes the folds will try and say, you told me to go this way, and the way I pull, it will do this. It will have one side that feels shorter and one side that's looser. And we want to fold along the spine. And then we say, I appreciate that this first journey and these first creases helped us get to us where we are. However, we need to encourage a whole new pathway and a new crease. So we would just push a new pathway. And, you know, it's kind of like relearning some old habits, maybe some bad habits in our lives that we just need to be like, you know what? It's not always best to follow that same path again. And now what you've done is you've created a Minizine, an 8-page document where now it's even helpful if it's a blank piece of paper, because you ever notice how we are conditioned to write left to right, and we only use so much of the paper, especially on the notebooks? If you make this Minizine, there's so much surface area of paper that is so helpful and useful. You can put phone numbers on it, you can put map directions, you can doodle, and it's a blank sheet, and you can throw it in your pocket, and it's a way that's resourceful to use more of the paper. And we turn the page. Of course, this is a horizontal document about the languages of the land and where the origin of the word Ohlone came from, and the word Costanoan, how the Spaniards saw us, Costaños, Costaños. We turn the page and we talk about being in community, being stewards of the land, no trace left behind, ethical and sustainable harvesting methods. Because when my mother taught me how to harvest and collect in a good way, when re-engaging and recognizing our TEK, traditional ecological knowledge, that I need to go about it in a good way, that I need to harvest and respect the sacred lives that were lived and the gifts that they give by offering tobacco or even my hair or a song and letting the plant know where it's going, to not clear cut and to not damage the environment where these relatives are being harvested. If these plants are being harvested for food, if they're being harvested for resource, if I'm even using it as a teaching tool to respect the life that's lived and the gift that's given. My mom taught me this as a child. I didn't even know what the word ethical meant or sustainable harvesting. I was like, what does that mean? But she taught me how to do it in a good way, to respect the life that's lived, and to ensure that I don't take the first sprouts, because those are for the relatives before us. People are given the responsibility to be good stewards. The plants and the animals, they are our first relatives. They are the first people of the earth. And humans have been given the obligation, the sacred responsibility to be good stewards and good relatives, to respect all sacred living systems, to recognize we will always have an impact. We can't go in life just tiptoeing around and never impacting anything, because even if you're an omnivore or a vegetarian or a vegan, you still need to take a life to sustain your own. We still live in this world and in this life cycle, and when we pass, we give our bodies back to the earth. Again, I'm not a fan of colonialism and settler colonial decision-making, such as embalming bodies. Why aren't we gifting our bodies back to the earth to grow? I understand for studying crimes. I don't understand this concept of preservation. It's a waste. Some decisions really confuse me in Western settler colonial environments and societies. Question why things are the way they are. And so, bringing Indigenous pedagogies into today's environments, we can strategize sustainable futures. And as I mentioned when I started, this prayer, this Mutsun Sawe, this song, Pide Kanama, Si Compatian, Hetel Kanoso, Soto Kanoso. And in my language, no son means in breath, so it is in spirit. I also have Ohlone Solidarity for allies, and in it has a lot of educational resources and examples of pillars of allyship, and also websites, and somewhere here, oh, right there, it says East Bay Regional Parks Ohlone Curriculum. I point this out because we support each other, and it still is on a few rounds of edits. I listen to community. I attempt to address it. I am one person, and I am slow. However, I've added more websites of Native communities, and it's my goal. I first designed it to be able to give to other communities. I wish I was faster and more efficient in designing a editable PDF so my Native relatives could easily edit and put in their own territories, their own websites, their own visuals. However, just being a tier 1 or 2 associates and bachelors of graphic design and web design, I have minimum skills to get things done, and I'm still kind of slow. That being said, I dominantly went to school just to help our nonprofit. I did not want to become a graphic designer or web designer, and I'm not. I just leaned to my skills to be helpful to the best of my ability. The way I put it is I will do whatever I can, whenever I can, however I can. Again, whatever I can do to honor my ancestors to the best of my ability, to honor truth and history, and to be a good ancestor in training. So I ask you, are you taking steps to be a good ancestor in training? I want to thank you for your time, and I am open to questions. I maintain Kanyon Consulting's website, which definitely needs an update. However, social media, all those web handles, Kanyon Consulting or Kanyon LLC, on Facebook, all those fun things. So I love to interact and interface with the community because I know there's some questions that are going to come up here, but if you're watching this later, I am open to interfacing and interacting. Always remember, though, this is work. So if you have resources, be generous. I represent a nonprofit. Let's trade. Community service hours, donations. Let's think about ways that we can collaborate.
That's really important. Thank you, Kanyon. And I got my Minizine, so I was doing it along with you. And we have that in the comments. So this is a really great resource with a lot of good information, and also ways to support and learn more too in both of those pocket guides too, and the importance of community. So and sharing resources too. So thank you for all of that. And we did have people that were commenting with questions about the ancestral lands that they are on, and wanting to acknowledge and learn more about that. So both of those, the maps in here are really a great resource to do that. So thank you for sharing. And I think that is going to be it for us today. So thank you, Kanyon, so much for sharing all of those resources. And thank you to all of our presenters today. We will have this recording on our YouTube page, and all of the resources that we were sharing. We'll make sure to post that in various places too. So thank you all for joining, and enjoy the rest of your day.